Fred Donaldson, Ph.D., is a play specialist, educational consultant, and author of the Pulitzer-nominated book Playing by Heart. For over 25 years, Fred has pioneered the use of play as an alternative to contest behavior, abuse, and aggression. He travels internationally to play with children and wild animals. He also conducts workshops to train adults in the significance of play as a practical way to experience deep relationships.
I want to give you, I think, a feeling about what it's been like for me for the past 26 years to play. I didn't come to play as a researcher. I came as someone who was standing around and have a child pulled on my pant leg and literally pulled me down into play. I didn't know what was happening to me. I didn't have any idea what was going to happen, and I'm not sure if I did that I would have allowed it to happen. I was trained as a university professor. I have a master's in Chinese and a PhD in geography and black studies. So you can see, I was nowhere ready for what happened to my world. But I got very frustrated with university life and the politics of university teaching, and asked myself, where would I go if I wanted to be with human beings who are learning, rather than humans who are talking about learning? So I decided that I was going back to preschool. So I went to preschool and didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to teach little kids. So I just started to go out and get down on the ground with them. And they began to teach me what I call play. And at the beginning, they taught me two things. One was that play didn't have any contest behavior in it. And it wasn't that the children, these were 2 to 4-year-olds, and it wasn't that they were making ethical decisions about, oh, contest hurts, let's not do it. It just was totally irrelevant. It wasn't present. The other thing I noticed is that there were stages to touch in the play. That every time a new person came into the play, they followed this sequence of touch. Children with autism know exactly the same play signals, exactly the same stages of touch as normal kids. And I thought, oh, is it that play is a pattern of behavior that's intrinsic to humans that all humans begin life with? So I began following that out to see if that were true and playing with all kinds of children that I could find. And that seemed to be true. I thought, what if kids are teaching me something that goes beyond human beings? Suppose this is a life process. I said, whoa, then I could go play with wild animals. Yeah, okay. A friend of mine told me about a place near Seattle, a wolf sanctuary. And I went up and visited and said to the biologist, I want to go in and play with the wolves. And he looked at me and said, Fred, these may be in large enclosures, but these aren't pets. These are not like golden retrievers. Nobody goes in there. I said, yeah, I know. That's why I want to do it. So he said, well, okay, you write a proposal, and I'll give it to the board. And the board came back and said yes, with 2 rules. Whatever happens to you is your own problem. And you cannot hurt or injure or kill any wolves. And I said, that's perfect. I couldn't imagine how I was going to do that. But those were good rules for it. So I spent 10 years playing with wolves and coyotes and fox. But then I found a woman who told me about a magical place in Australia where I went for 5 weeks and lived on the beach and played with dolphins from sunup to sundown. All day long in water, in touch with up to 17 dolphins. And I found that the dolphins played just like the wolves played just like the kids played. All the touch was exactly the same. The same no contest behavior was there. And it was really becoming clear to me that what I was learning from children and wild animals was a way of belonging, that we are given at birth a process of belonging that allows us to communicate love and trust and safety across all the boundaries that exist on Earth. And that became incredibly powerful to me. It meant literally, as just a regular old human, I had the ability to play with life itself, and that the form of the life didn't make any difference at all. So I spent 6 years living in Montana, and I would wander the Montana wilderness looking for playmates. And I played with black bear and grizzly bear in the wild, and elk and bison, and I just wander out looking for animals to touch and roll around with. And what seems so different, the categories that seem uncrossable, grizzly and human, rolling around together, aren't impossible. They're crossable. In the first years of doing this, I was teaching kindergarten, and I had in my room a little boy with leukemia named Paul. And Paul's doctor had told his parents that he shouldn't play. He shouldn't do any rambunctious activity because it would hasten his death. So we agreed, and I knew how important touch was. Intuitively, that just seemed important to me. So I would carry him around on my shoulders, and when it was block time, I laid down in the middle of the blocks. So as he played with blocks, he had to touch me. In story time, I sat him in my lap, and about 6 months into the school year, Paul came and said, "Fred, I would like to have a meeting with you and my parents." I said, "Okay." And remember, Paul's 5. So the next day, we all got together, and Paul said to us, "I want to play with Fred. I know I'm not going to live as long as the 3 of you, but I want to live my life as if I were." So after a lot of tears, we decided that it was okay. Paul could come and play. And the next day, Paul came, and he came so high. He almost came on the ceiling into that room. He was so excited. He played so hard, he couldn't come to school the next day. He was wiped out, physically exhausted. He came the next day, and he played so hard. Paul could only come every other day to school. This was a half-day kindergarten because he played so hard when he came. Paul died in a month from leukemia. And I realized that Paul taught me 2 lessons about what I call play. And the first one, that Paul's trust wasn't in me. Paul's trust wasn't in himself and mom and dad. That trust was so big it didn't even have an in. There was no object to it. It was just trust, period. And I realized the second thing, that Paul played knowing what it was going to do. Paul had talked to me many times in those 6 months about death, and he knew that he was making a choice to play and die rather than live and not play. And I realized then that what play is about is really not fun. It's about living fully life while you are alive. And that fully living means that you can make the most powerful connection on earth with every being that's there. So when I finished with Paul, it was, oh, shoot, now what? You know, then the fact that you couldn't make money doing it, the fact that you're male, going up to schools and say, well, here I am, I want to play with kids. Get this guy out of here. There's no way we're having this big guy on the ground playing with kids. And you can imagine parents' reactions, teachers' reactions, and they say, well, you mean you want to teach them baseball? Kickball? I said, no, what I want to do is touch them. Oh. I mean, it just got crazier and crazier and crazier. But after Paul, there was nothing I could do, because it was so clear to me that it was about the giving and receiving of 2 gifts. As a playmate, when I go and play, and what the children give me, what the animals give me, are 2 gifts. Fred, you're lovable. There's nothing to be afraid of. And when I'm in that environment, I can play. We don't need zoos. We literally can go into the wild and play with life as it exists. We have within us the ability to determine, does that lion want to play or does he want to eat? If he wants to eat, well, okay, I'll wait a day. I'll play tomorrow. And it's nothing more than when we were 4, 5, and 6 years old. And we went to Art and knocked on the door, yelled out, "Can John come out?" And if he says no, or if Mom says no, he's got to do his work or whatever he's got to do. We didn't sit down on the lawn and say, "Oh, shoot, the world's ended." We went to the next person. And we went to the field. We just kept going till we found playmates, because the world was full of it. There weren't any not playmates. That's still true. There aren't any not playmates out there. When I talk to teachers and parents about touch and play, and I say to them, "What do you think about that?" Most people say, "Well, this is a pretty hands-off culture. In schools, the rules are," I play in schools in which on the wall is written, "Keep your hands to yourself." And so the whole school walks around with their hands folded, except for violent touch. The culture has abdicated, created a vacuum of no touch, and into that vacuum, part of the culture throws Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers and all the other stuff that teaches how to and do all of that. So when I get down to play with kids in Head Start, what do I get? Punches, kicks. That's play. That's what kids think play is. It's aggression, it's winning, it's fighting, it's boy thing, not girl. It's all this cultural stuff. And what I realized is that the animals and the children were teaching me something that I call original play or authentic play, because it comes from our origins, not from our culture. I don't pay attention to any of the categories that cultures list on people. When I was playing on the Navajo reservation, a man said to me, "Well, Fred, what do you do here? I can play with those kids because they're in my clan, but I can't play with those kids because they're not in my clan. What do I do?" I say, when you become a playmate, you have to give up to the allegiance to the categories within which you live your normal life. You can't play as a woman. You can't play as a man. I cannot play as a white 6'4" guy. I have to play as a playmate, which means letting go of all of it. And it means I have to give, in the world we live in, I have to give love at the point of attack. When kids punch me, when they kick me, when they bite me, when they literally try to beat me up, it's not a matter of waiting 5 minutes and saying, "Okay, now I can go back." It's as the punch lands, being able to give love right out of your face, so that there is no time sequence. And literally what I find happens is that love literally is bigger than violence. And that's, in a very brief kind of way, the power that I feel that play is. That it's a way given to us by creation, or whatever word one wants to put on how that comes to us, that allows us to transcend, to, like laser beams, get right through all the categories within which we live life on earth. I'm not sure I know of a human being who gets more love than I get. It's almost as if I go in and sit on the floor and say, "Okay, come love me." And it's like being run over by a train of love. It just, whoa, geez, this is incredible. And literally, the children of the world are waiting for us to get down and be there for them.